everyone, and welcome to this year's Pride video. Before we get started, I have a couple of quick announcements. World Watercolor Month is around the corner. Many of you know that I take part every year as an artist ambassador. As the name suggests, World Watercolor Month is a celebration of watercolors all around the world during the month of July. It's also an important event for supporting young artists through the International Child Art Foundation. Many artists, including myself, donate artwork to be printed in the WWM souvenir shop on zipper bags, and this year they've added mugs. All profits from these sales are donated to ICAF. World Watercolor Month was founded by Doodle Wash, so you can head over to their website for all of the details, which I'll link in the description below. There are so many ways to celebrate. There is a 31-day challenge with the prompts designed by Angela Fair, but you don't have to paint every day to celebrate watercolors. Simply add the hashtag World Watercolor Month to any watercolor piece that you upload to social media during the month of July. I also wanted to let you know about a little something, well, a big something that I did this year to help celebrate. Over the last several months, I have been putting together an advent calendar style box for the 31 days of July. Each day is numbered and corresponds to the official WWM prompt list with Charlie's blessing, of course. My patrons had first dibs on these, but there are a couple left at the time that I am recording this video. If you'd like one, head on over to my Etsy shop ASAP, and if you missed them this time around, let me know in the comments of this video if you'd be interested in one in the future. If there's enough interest, I would really like to do these for the holidays, perhaps even next year again for World Watercolor Month, so let me know. Now on to today's video. This is the fourth piece in my Pride Animal series. The first were the Pride Penguin, celebrating the legalization of gay marriage in the United States. The second was a pair of albatross as my own quiet coming out as bi. And the third was a trans lion in support of transgender rights. To put it way too lightly, 2023 has been a really bad year for LGBTQIA+ rights. Since there is a lot of stress and fear weighing heavily on the community, this year I wanted to do something a bit more light and joyful, and thus I bring to you the Lesbians. First, I had to do some very important research, collecting all the best beans. Cricket was only mildly helpful in this, she would have rather been sleeping. Second, the concept sketch. It was shockingly difficult to find the references that I needed for the pose that I had in my head so that I could make sure all the best beans were visible. Third, the thumbnail sketch. I did this back in March, and for those of you following me on Instagram and Patreon, this was the piece that started my love affair with colored pencils. What? Me? How? All started with this sketch. I only used some mechanical color pencils that I had on hand to stand in for the colors that I was going to use in the final watercolor piece. I didn't even have a proper set of color pencils, but I did have one, a white Prismacolor Premier, and that was the moment that I slipped and fell down the rabbit hole. It was creamy and silky and so tactilely satisfying on the paper in my sketchbook. I fell in love immediately. So I did what any other artist with ADHD and a dopamine deficiency would do. I spent hours researching the perfect shades of pencil that I would need to purchase to recreate the lesbian flag. But fear not, my watercolor nerds, there is still something for you too in this video. After waiting painstakingly for like an entire week for them to arrive because I didn't order them on Prime, whatever, I could then begin more testing to see how they would layer on top of the various shades of orange and purpley pink watercolors. I narrowed down my watercolor palette to Schmincke's Vermilion, Schmincke's Transparent Orange, Winsor and Newton's Quinacridone Magenta, and Daniel Smith's Permanent Violet. The Prismacolor premieres are Scarlet Lake, Poppy Red, Orange, Process Red, Mulberry, and Dahlia Purple. I was absolutely terrified of this sketching process, and I knew that I would be working on hot press paper, which is easily damaged. So I used my digital drawing tablet and spent literally hours trying to get my sketch exactly the way I wanted it. From there, I could print it out, trace it onto my watercolor paper with a Col Erase pencil, and touch up any areas that needed to be darker. Since this was going to be a mixed media piece, it was okay for the drawing to be darker than I would usually make it for a watercolor only piece. And I am working on Blick Premier hot pressed 140-pound watercolor paper. As usual, the supplies are listed in the description. Now let's pause the discussion on supplies and talk about the vision for this piece. I don't often have a grand vision for the animal portraits that I paint as tutorials because the goal of those pieces is to teach others how to paint. I am also coming off of this massive 3-year art slump in which I was rarely inspired to do anything creative aside from what my job required, and sometimes I even failed there. I am happy to say that is well over and done with, but my point is that at the time that I was planning this all out, it had been a while since I put any real creative intent behind a piece. It felt so good to finally be excited to create something again. I've had this concept in my head for literally years. I want to say that I put it on the list like right after I did the Pride Penguins, but due to my own personal journey of coming out and the importance of the trans rights piece last year, it just got sat on the back burner until I could get to it. Part of me wants to say that I wish I had gotten to it sooner, but that isn't true now that I've seen the finished piece. It wouldn't have existed years ago. Not in this form, anyway. I came to this piece exactly when I was supposed to, and spoilers, it's actually my favorite in the entire series so far. Come with me on a side tangent for a moment. I promise it's related. I tend to hyperfixate on things. I always have. My mom told me that when I was younger, I wanted to eat PB&J sandwiches like every single day for lunch for an entire school year. These hyperfixations come and go, but they do tend to get stronger when I'm stressed and or depressed. Throughout my life, I have cycled through computer games, usually one at a time. After I left for college, I'd often switch up the game whenever my sister picked up something new so that we could play together. When I left the zoo, she had introduced me to a game called Heroes of the Storm. During that transitional time from the zoo to whatever was coming next, I had no idea. Playing that game, watching the streamers that played the game, and being part of the community was a really big crutch for me. It's now 8 years later. I've left out a lot of the details, of course, but I am still playing this all but dead computer game. The company ran it into the ground. There are like 12 of us that still play. That's a joke, but only kind of. And I will probably keep playing it until it becomes literally unplayable because I love it with my whole heart. I started painting with watercolors around this same time when I was transitioning away from the zoo. I'm fairly confident that I watched nearly every watercolor video on YouTube between 2015 and 2017. I wanted to know more, I wanted to research, I wanted to explore and experiment all watercolor all the time. I was not interested in any other medium, just like I wasn't interested in other computer games growing up. If I was going to put my time and energy into something, I wanted to be really, really good at it. Also, as an aside, because of my chronic pain, I only have X amount of time to sit behind a computer on any given day, so that also adds to the limiting factors of like what I can pick up as a hobby. Aside from my Let's Learn series, which I did as a sponsorship for Skillshare back in the day, I really didn't touch other mediums from 2015 to probably 2021, when I took an art journaling class and used Posca markers for the first time. Even that, though, was only in art journals and not in finished art pieces. Throughout the pandemic, I started noticing that I was only interested in comfort things that I already knew, like, in general. The only things I wanted to do were the things that were comforting to me. Things that I knew how to do, like watercolors, stories that I knew in media already. I have never reread a book in my entire life until recently. And now I have listened to The House in the Cerulean Sea audiobook 4 times in the last 2 years. I've also watched and rewatched both Critical Role campaigns, which is thousands of hours of content. I didn't want anything new despite my growing watch lists, only comfort. So why am I rambling about all this during a Pride piece celebrating lesbians when it has nothing to do with lesbians? Working on this piece not only brought some much needed humor and adorableness to my life, but it also made me fall in love with curiosity again. It made me want to branch out again. Am I wearing rose-colored glasses and it's not actually that good of a piece? Maybe, but I don't care. It makes me feel happy, like actually happy when I look at it. I love the loose, colorful watercolor wash that set the tone for the whole piece. I love the textural lines of the colored pencil. I can recall the tactile sensation of the soft pencils against the ever so slightly toothy paper. I love it, and I just hope that it brings you the same amount of joy when you see it too. Circling back to me using colored pencils, of all things, I still don't think I'm ever going to enjoy using colored pencils in a technically proper way, possibly ever. I don't want to build up color over many layers. I don't want to blend and burnish, and I really, really don't want to use watercolor pencils. Those just take all the joy out of big, juicy watercolor washes for me personally. But I love these chunky lines. It might just be a phase that I'm going through, but I am having a freaking blast, and it has been so long since that has happened. It sounds cheesy AF, but I can feel this sense of relief lifting off of my shoulders. I mean, the crappy back pain is still there, but my heart feels lighter. So whether it's watercolors or a new to you medium or both, I am sending you all the happiness and joy of the summer season to get out there and create something for yourself. Just to be happy about it. I hope that you will extend that joy and happiness to all of those around you, including members of the LGBTQIA+ community who really need support right now. Donate if you can, but more importantly, just show kindness to your fellow humans in your community. If you want to pick up this piece or one of my other Pride pieces, you can head on over to my shop. The stickers and prints are waiting for you. If you made it this far into the video, please toss some orange and pink hearts in the comments for our lovely lesbians. I'm going to let you finish out the rest of this video on your own. Keep watching to the end if you want to see the scan not only of the finished piece, but also the watercolor wash on its own before I started using the colored pencils. I honestly love both versions so much, which is why I scanned the watercolor wash in just in case I messed it up with the colored pencils. Much love to you and wishing you the happiest of prides. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my patrons, and I will see you during World Watercolor Month. Until next time, happy painting.